I will try to explain Egeria's formula system in this video. So here's an empty worksheet, and I will put some numbers in the first column and create a formula in the second column. If I click on some cell here, and a reference to the cell will be added. So every cell in Egeria has an address. So the address of this cell is A2, B1. So it's the coordinates of every axis actually. If I would have 3 axes, it will be some address built up from 3 components. So I would have something like C2 here or something like this. So in this is a fixed reference which will always reference this cell. If I click here, this A address disappears because it has the same address, A address, as the cell which is being computed. In Egeria, references are always relative to the cell which is being computed. So this blue cell is being computed now, and this cell A1B1 can be referenced with just one address change. So we change axis B1, but we do not change axis A. So you can see how it works if I extend the area of effect of this formula to the whole column and save it. So you see this formula with only one prescription, it always takes the same row actually. So it's the other column but the same row. If I add the same formula but with both prescriptions here and apply it to the whole column, it will have 2's in every cell, so it will always choose this one. Okay, that's relatively easy. These are fixed references. Let's add a new one. So we'll add some columns and create a new formula here. So let's imagine you always want to pick the previous element on the A-axis. It's useful, for example, if you have some month axis and you want to take the previous months for every cell. If I click here, it will be a fixed reference which will always pick A1. But a relative reference can be added with this point operator, and I can choose some function which will get me the proper element. So in this case I would choose previous. You see the proper element is selected, and I can apply it to all A's, to the whole column, and save it. And you see always the previous element is chosen. So this first cell has no previous element on the A-axis, but the other do. So I can, the next axis works the same actually, and I also can combine multiple functions. So I can, it's like a path. So I can choose previous again here, and then it will go 2 steps to the past, so to say. Okay, that's for the next and previous functions. Some more interesting thing are relations between axis elements. What I could do, for example, I could have a relation between 2 axes. I could call this element, for example, Germany, this one Spain, and this would be USA. So I have some countries on the A-axis. And I want to do some computation based on the currency of the countries. So these 2 countries have euro as a currency, and this one has US dollar. To represent this, I first create a new axis. I will call it currency. And I will have 2 elements here. One is euro and one is US dollar. And now this axis will be my country axis, and I will add a column here which will be called CUR. It will be a reference to the currency axis. Okay, and now I can assign my currencies to my countries. Now let's create a new hypersheet where we'll store conversion rates. So just for display, I will put 10 for euro and 100 for US dollar. so we can see the difference. And I will add a new formula here. And now we want to reference the other cell. So to do so, I can just click here, and it knows, it understands that there's only one connection between these two axes, currency and country, and it just prints the path here. So it means we start from country, which we have in the hypersheet 1, and then we pick the currency for this country. And if I apply this formula to all items, it would pick the correct currency. So this is a relative reference also, because if I would click, for example, here, this would be a fixed one, so it will always pick the currency currency 2. But in this case, it will be relatively to the country, so we will use this attribute. It also says this in the context help, so it's currency referenced via column CUR. So if I would do some currency conversion, I could just take this conversion rate and multiply it by the first column and save it, and these numbers would be multiplied by 10 and this one by 100. This syntax you have just seen, it's a shortcut syntax actually for joins. So the whole syntax is, we put some hypersheet name, hypersheet code, so h2, and we start from the source axis, so from axis where we are coming from, it's a country, and we use the join function to join a different axis. Join has two parameters, one is mandatory and one is optional. The first parameter is the destination axis, so it's currency in this case, so we want to get a currency. So it actually works here, but we could also use the second parameter. The second parameter is the name of an attribute. So this is the complete syntax. So country join currency on CUR column. And if I would put this multiplication here, it would produce the same result. So this join syntax is a bit like a normal join in database operations.